Hi there. In this lecture we see Eugenio Szabados against Mikhail Tal, 1957. Knight f3 from Szabados. Tal plays knight f6, c4, e6, and now quite an exotic treatment, b3. White is aiming to get control of e5 in particular, it seems. d5, e3, c5, bishop b2, knight c6, and now this looks like a little bit like a Nimzo-Larsen strategy. So the bishop often comes out to b5, but it does so here. So kind of Nimzo-Larsen from an English opening. White trying to get a firm control over a central square. Bishop d6, white castles, but now bishop g4. Here we see d4, c takes, e takes d4. It seems, at this point, if bishop takes c6 here, this situation, there can be queen takes d4. This isn't that bad to accept double pawns. This should be about even, this position. But we see e takes d4. This does suffer in that it closes the bishop down. And the bishop has kind of neglected this diagonal. Is this significant? We see black castling. Bishop takes c6. Now, b takes, queen d3. And here, guess what Tal plays for 100 points? This seems to be a very, very logical move. And black doesn't have too many concerns about the centre being under pressure. It's quite a solid centre for the moment. It will take quite a long time to torture c6. That could be an issue later. And the implications of undermining c6, d5 later could be weak in theory. But it's black's turn. And guess what Tal plays in this position? Okay. Knight h5, yeah, heading to put a nice juicy knight on f4. Looks very, very logical. A kind of more boring continuation, which technically is okay, is, to exchange on f3, but it reduces complexity. And in fact, when Tal keeps complexity, he's also keeping the fun, excitement and drama and tension of the game alive, like a good Alfred Hitchcock, movie. The tension, the drama. Here, okay, it's a little bit dry. It's a little bit drier, but black, should be doing, quite well here. This is a good continuation with a strong knight on e4, but it's drier, you could argue. There is a d4 weakness technically. Yeah, it's good for black. That's another way of playing it. But this is kind of more tension rich. g3, and there's light square weaknesses now being created. And here, another very aggressive move. This seems to have a very natural flow to it, this game. We see f5. Now, knight e5 is played. Here is where there is a move which Tal didn't play. He played quite a commitment move, but actually it does have great benefits. What Tal played, bishop takes e5. It turns out here, this commitment to give up the bishop right now, right here, could maybe be delayed. Bishop h3 to drive the rook away from f2 is also pretty interesting for f4. As example, if bishop a3, which is a logical thing sometimes to exchange off these bishops to emphasize the dark square weaknesses, it turns out here queen f6 is immediately strong. For example, if bishop takes d6, we would ignore that. We don't have to recapture. We can plow into f2 to get into g2 mate, for example, like this. And if f3, then damage has been done. This is a fantastic position. So yeah, it did seem as though this is a great continuation. Bishop h3 with this idea of f4. It seems very, very dangerous attack against the white king. And probably, if g4 is needed, then okay, f3 is possible. And this position, yeah, it gets razor sharp. But essentially, this is also a strong attack position where white's king is in trouble. Things like rook g5 are coming along. Rook g5 is a threat. It's difficult for white to defend this. So that was a very, very interesting situation here. Tal's move is a little bit more committal. D takes f4, but for the downside to be exposed of this immediate capture requires an amazing level of resourcefulness. we see knight d2 being played. If f3, then actually, can you see what black can play here in this position? These pieces are asleep, so it's a little bit like a Morphy game. Poor Morphy. Yeah, and the opponent's pieces are asleep, not out of bed yet. If f takes is played here, it can be exposed that those pieces are asleep. There's nothing protecting apart from the queen. f1, but here, if the king moves, then we just play rook takes f1 and knight g3 check. Thanks very much. So, you know, this is a rather scary continuation. If king takes h2, which is the better move, then check, and actually we can use the f file rather rapidly while these guys are asleep. So, you know, they're not really helping f2. You know, f2 is crashing through. So yeah, that is kind of interesting that f3 kind of fells dramatically to f takes g here, and kind of logical. These asleep pieces should be punishable. So we see knight d2, so getting them a bit awake. Is it too little too late? Queen g5. Now rook ac1 makes things worse. There is actually, it seems there's one way to play this position, which is bishop a3, because if f3 taking on f8 and then h4, this situation is going to be possible for white, it seems, not to be mated that easily, and white might even have a small edge here, even with the fawn pawn, the dreaded fawn pawn, THORN, fawn in the side. But rook ac1 makes things worse. Yeah, bishop a3, it seems, had to be played. But rook ac1, we see now the fawn pawn. So this is one of my favorite all-time strategies. It's becoming, and the neural networks of today, you know, they like their fawn pawns. We see bishop d4. The interesting about this position, geometrically, if you look at it, d5 points to the king as though there's a potential theoretical check. c6 is protecting that, and there's also this rook here. It turns out here, instead of bishop d4, just taking on c6 to undermine d5 might actually be a useful way of, in effect, defending, because after knight f4, and white would have to be a kind of supercomputer to play like this, h4, to get the queen away from the 5th rank, and then taking, yeah, this is really strong. And here there's a spectacular move, and yeah, we can see actually some issues. Can you see what white can play here? This is the computer defense, absolute computer defense, rook h6, unveiling an attack on a8, and in this way, you know, that will be a disaster for black. But otherwise, the best move is actually queen g5, but then knight e4, and then this situation with bishop c1. I know it's crazy stuff, but it results in about equality. So that was the only way kind of to save this. Rook takes c6. It's almost, yeah, it's pretty sharp stuff. But in what was played, bishop d4, black, you know, is not going to be exposed to any checks now. This is good enough as long as there's no funny checks, funny business basically. It's all go now. It's systems all go for Mikhail Tal with this next move. So 200 points. What does black play in this position? So what do you think Tal plays here? 5 seconds to pause the video. It's really fantastic stuff. I mean, this is really king's crushing stuff. And as a king's crusher, I absolutely love this stuff. So we see, okay, knight f4 with tempo on the queen. Beautiful stuff. We see bishop e3. If g takes, then just keep the queen aligned to the king, you know, for bishop h3 and queen g2. You know, here, this didn't happen. So, you know, bishop e3 was played. But if, you know, if this, then there's no defense because of bishop h3. If rook g1, then there's bishop g2, and this is mating. And if we look at this again, you know, if queen c2 instead of taking the knight, then knight e2 check, and knight takes d4 simply, which protects even c6, winning material. If queen e3, then knight e2 check, queen h5, and this situation is pretty crunching. After bishop g2, rook f4 is undermining the chain and threatening rook takes h4. This is just devastating. There's going to be a pretty mate there. So it's all pretty devastating stuff. This knight f4 is pretty vicious, especially if it's taken. Just for the record, you might have a query about knight takes f3 here. It does hit the queen. All black does here is play queen h5. This is crushing. So we're still hitting the queen, we're hitting the knight. On g takes, bishop takes f3, and there's no real defense here for white. You know, giving up the queen is pretty hopeless, and moving the rook would result in a checkmate very, very quickly. So yes, knight takes f3. It doesn't really do much after queen h5. It's just a crushing attack here. Okay. White avoids that with bishop e3. But now, knight e2 check, king h1. If white offers the queen up here, in fact, you know, the best move here is what? Guess what? To do with the form pawn. Yeah, checkmate ends the game. We can actually play queen h5, so leaving the attack on the queen. And so you have queen d1, queen h3, and we're going to be like winning the queen there under much better circumstances. So yeah, this would be absolutely, you know, devastating. Queen h5 here. Yeah, and if the form pawn's taken out, we just get a form bishop. Thanks very much. You know, queen h3, end of game. So yeah, so we see actually king h1. Queen does move. So we've got a lovely form pawn. We've got a lovely knight taking out an escape square. It's a delicious attacking position, I would say. Queen h3, and it's a delicious idea to play rook f5, and then I love this tactical idea, queen takes h2 and rook h5 mating, because the knight controls the g1 escape square. And I have managed to pull off this pattern in some of my own games, and it is a lovely one. I think I first saw this pattern in games of Michael Basman. I was just in love with it from years back, this kind of pattern where you're sacking your queen sometimes, or just rook f5 to h5 as well. It might not even need a queen sack. We see rook g1 and now rook f5. So the clear and imminent danger is the queen sack, with rook h5 being mate. We see bishop g5. Just to put that on the board for beauty, if bishop f4, then queen takes, so you see exactly what I mean. So this is a lovely checkmate with the escape squares all taken out. Checkmate there. So we see bishop g5, which is desperate really. That's taken. Knight takes f3. But now rook h5. There's no time to take on e2 now, because the defender of h2 is under threat. So we see rook g2. If just for example, you know, rook takes e2, then bishop takes f3 check, queen takes h2. And also, by the way, if knight h4, guess what black has in this position, which is delicious. 5 seconds pause video here for 50 points. Yeah, we just want to crash through rook takes and then get access to f3. This is absolutely devastating. So, okay, in the game, you know, rook g2 was played. But now, what's the game ender? So Tal is a piece up, which is great news. There's no checks heading his way to his king, which is great news. So game ender, in style, 100 points. What would you play? Okay, it's just knight f4, yeah. It's hitting the queen, it's hitting the rook, it's devastating. If queen f1, then we just take on f3, thanks very much. And then checkmate, forget taking the rook, just checkmate. So yeah, game ender, knight f4. If g takes, then bishop takes f3, yeah. And again, you know, this is just devastating here. Queen takes there. I mean, that's desperate, yeah. Otherwise, queen f1, queen h2 again. So yeah, a crushing game, form pawn. It seems there might be a slight improvement to Tal's play available to the bishop takes e5. But you know, the defensive resources needed for white to actually punish this, potentially, it's, yeah, white goes wrong with bishop d4. The last chance saloon, it seems, was taking out c6. So yeah, when we take out c6, it could be a defensive measure against a form pawn, it seems. It's remarkable, and that it actually even manages to defend. But yeah, it is a situation where h4, it is a funny situation indeed, where this is a key tempo gainer against a8. It's a very, very funny variation where white, if white could salvage things and force black to play accurately, so queen g5 there, and then knight e4. Yeah, it's a very funny situation because it stops the queen, you know, doing anything bad to the king. Anything else, you know, of taking the rook here, by the way, you know, there's bishop c8, check, and then the form pawn like mate. So it's a spectacular variation of resourcefulness, but that's computer line. But the way Tal played it, yeah, bishop d4 is just, it's all over basically after bishop d4. It's a wonderful form pawn based attack in my view. Absolutely wonderful after knight f4. I really enjoyed this game. I hope you did too. I love the attacking players, I have to say. Okay, the true Kingscrushers of the game. Thanks so much. Hi there. Thanks for getting to the end of the YouTube video. If you would like to see other Mikhail Tal games, I actually have an amazing course for Mikhail Tal, which is currently at 4.9 with over 400 students. You can check this out from the Kingscrusher TV page. So Chess Strategy and Tactics, Mikhail Tal's amazing games. You can check out some free preview videos as well here. If you do expand all sections, you can see the preview links to get some free previews. So I hope you do check out this course index and the free previews. So I really had a thrilling time actually checking out Mikhail Tal's games. So yeah, the YouTube video here you saw was just a sample from this course. I hope you check it out. Okay, thanks so much. Oh, by the way, comments, questions, likes, shares, all appreciated. And if you did get to this part of the video, please do leave some sort of comment like Tal fan. Okay, thanks again.